So, welcome to the second half of our spoken word, and I am going to start off with another one of my short stories that's hopefully going to go into a larger picture. And this one, I'm sort of going to call it Barbados, the Unexpected Donuts. And there's a picture of a beach in Barbados behind us, just so you can just get into the feel of things. But it's going to bit different, this story. Martin's wish to return to Barbados for his 40th birthday had come to fruition. It wasn't quite as he'd wished, as Concorde had sadly been retired in 2003, just after we'd returned from our first holiday there. We'd forgotten how tiring a long-haul flight was. The heat and humidity hit us the minute the aircraft doors opened, and we just wanted to get to the hotel. Since our disastrous hotel stay in Mallorca in 1988, we'd tried to avoid hotels abroad. Unfortunately, the villa where we wanted to stay was booked for the first week, so we booked ourselves into the Royal Pavilion Hotel on the West Coast. We collected our suitcases and looked for our names on the taxi and limo drivers' boards. We spotted ours. It was a private car from the hotel. Not a stretch limo or anything like that, just a smart, clean, air-conditioned car and a polite driver who was hopefully not going to drive like a madman. As with most taxi transfer journeys, some conversation was in order. I'm not going to try any accents. Welcome to Barbados. Have you been here before? Hopefully, our replies were a little bit more enthusiastic than we were feeling. Have you come to see the Formula One car? No. What Formula One car? We were all ears. Our passion for Formula One. Our passion was for Formula One, and we'd started planning holidays to watch races around the globe. It is a Ferrari coming next weekend and racing up the Ronald Mapp Highway. It's a promotional event being run by Shell, promoting their fuel V-Power. It's actually Michael Schumacher's car from last season. If you're interested, you'll have to get there really early. They are expecting over 20,000 people. The driver told us the best place to watch the Ferrari, and we eagerly awaited the 28th of November, the following week. We hired a car so that we could drive to the highway and parked where the taxi driver had told us. Thousands of locals were beginning to gather along the road. We had an excellent view. The excitement was growing, and the crowd went wild when they heard the roar of the Ferrari approaching. The sound carried for miles. It was a magical moment when the car finally flew past us, reaching 168 miles per hour on the straight. The power of the engine was vibrating through our chests, and even with ear protectors, the thunderous engine noise was ringing in our ears. The driver was a Ferrari test driver called Mark Genet. He treated us to a few high-speed flybys and did some tire-smoking donuts that filled the air with clouds of dust, and we could soon smell the burning rubber and brakes. At one point, he got out of the car and waved at the crowd. Afterwards, the car was parked at the petrol station on the highway, where people could get up close to the car. It was definitely a moment to remember, and I still have the photo on my office wall of Mark Genet performing the donuts. I've took it off the wall so you could see it. I don't know if this is going to work. It's not, is it? Oh, there you go.
Sort of, yeah.
Trouble is, you've got your reflection, haven't you?
Yeah, but no, there is a glimpse of it. Yes.
It's definitely a red car.
It's red, yes. And it's clear, yes. I couldn't tell it was a Ferrari, but it's clearly a red racing car.
I thought it was a distant micro, but still.
Then can you see all the crowd?
Yeah. No.
Yes. Yes, masses of people. Oh, that's yeah, right. That's a memory, isn't it?
Well, and it was just so unexpected as well, because they'd never had a Formula One car there, so they were absolutely beside themselves of excitement. And then just to park it in the garage, in the petrol station, and to be able to just go so up close. I don't think you could sit in it, but we certainly got photographs, but they're not on my computer, they're in albums. I was stood right by it. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing experience, and like such a surprise for Martin. So it was nice because he was 40 that week. So it was an added surprise to the visit to Barbados. Right, now, was it Tony next?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. Okay.
It was your poem that you read. I've got nothing new. This is one I wrote a few years ago, and I don't think it's got the. It's quite facile, but it sort of follows on from the poem that you read.
Oh yeah.
But you have to imagine that the person reading it might be a 10-year-old Greta Thunberg. You have to imagine this is written by a child who is probably not more than about 12 years old, or probably younger than that, which looking at me hard, I accept. It's called What is Snow? Tell me, Daddy, what is snow? We used to get it long ago, and were trees and fields once green? Oh, how I wish I could have seen. Did pretty sunbirds fill the sky when now so many creatures die? Was rain quite gentle when it fell? Did kiss the land and make it well? Now we just have floods or drought. Why did this horror come about? Could children go outside to play and not be scorched by burning rays? Our lovely world is slowly dying. I cannot stop myself from crying. Don't grown-ups care about its fate? They must act now, or it's too late. The air we breathe is foul and rank, and we have but ourselves to thank. In the sea, 10,000 species perish. On land, we are losing all we cherish, condemned by the naked greed of man, and no one seems to give a damn. We hover on the very brink. Wake up, and start to think.
Very good.
It's more like sort of, I always think I should really finish off with something really, gripping. So perhaps, so Dead-Eyed Dick and Mexican Pete set off for the Rio Grande.
Better not have the rest of that. But, no. There are quite a lot of these, climate catastrophe poems. Now that was neat, and it was simple and direct, which was a lovely thing about it.
Thank you.
Holly's piece, that we heard earlier. Thank you, Simone. Was very impressive. As I said, I really feel it would benefit from editing, but just reading it, hearing it as a story rather than specifically as a poem, it was very effective.
As a short story, I really thought that, and I thought it was a very, very mature piece for a girl who was probably 17.
Yeah,
I don't think I could have written that at 17.
I don't think I could. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I wrote a few lines the other day, and it's just and again today, I could have done a few more lines. You know, and I work at the shop on a Thursday where I volunteer, and you just come out and the fumes and the traffic, it's just horrendous. So it sets me off then, you know, think it with the fumes and pollution, litter.
Well, according to Boris, we'll all be green by 2030.
We're fighting over those two charger things at on Morrison's car park to charge the electric cars up.
Yeah. Yes, there aren't many of those, but yeah. But then, yes, it depends what you mean by green, doesn't it? I mean, easily duped.
I think, yeah, I suspect in Boris's case that's exactly what
I think that's possibly what we're talking about. Yes.
Right. Okay. So, Mark, were you next?
Yeah. In this novel, I do some of the flashbacks in the present tense and third person. This is such a flashback to when Maddie is 13. She's not long out of hospital. Yes, her father is going to take her out for lunch. Okay. Maddie's dad has booked lunch in the Drake's Hotel restaurant on Marine Parade. He's seated her where she can see the pier. Brighton Pier is written on it in big letters, so you'll know what it is. Duh. She gazes at the exposed brickwork of the dining room and the plate glass panorama of the channel. Ships pass. No three-masted sailing vessels. She sees her father as a tall, aging man with a protruding abdomen, scant grey hair and thick spectacles, mole on his left temple. You've been to Brighton many times, Maddie, but not to Drake's before. She's glad the portions are small. Amuse-bouche, fresh fish, pre-dessert treat and petit four. She thanks him for the lovely meal, which gratifies him. They leave the restaurant and walk along the seafront chatting. She gathers her courage. Dad, why have you and Mum, separated? Please don't adopt your generation's lamentable habit of using like as a pause filler, Maddie. Sorry, what was it? Was it something I did? They walk 20 steps in silence, passing a newsagent's. Labour fights on the beaches of the browned-off voter. US study shows gun law cuts crime rate. Warm sunshine, patchy cloud and light winds forecast. We haven't separated. It's just convenient for us to have separate homes. Now, I often need to stay in Brighton overnight because of early classes or meetings. Your mother travels a lot, from theatre work, film sets. We love each other, and we both love you. Shall we look around a few shops? Maddie affects pleasure. Has Mum been in many films? 6. No, 7. Wildland was her biggest box office success. She won an Oscar, Best Actress. Pride vibrates in Richard's voice. Maddie asks whether she's seen Wildland and forgotten it. Her dad says she can't watch it until she's 15. You've seen her in plays, though you won't. Now, I took you to the Theatre Royal here when she played the lead in Hedda Gabler. You were only 10. You didn't make much of it. They stroll into town and pause at an equestrian shop. Mum says I can't go riding, says Maddie. I did riding, didn't I? You showed me photos. She's right, I'm afraid. Riding won't be sensible until you're fully recovered. I am recovered, except I can't remember stuff. The window display deluges her mind with images of stables, rustle of hay, smell of horses and leather, snorting breath, shifting hooves, creaking harness. Several of the books in her bedroom are pony stories. She blinks away tears. Mum doesn't want me to play football any longer either. Richard hears the catch in her voice. His heart melts. You'll have to promise not to head the ball, and you must wear protective headgear. And be careful about colliding with other players. Why don't we ask the proprietor of this establishment where we might acquire suitable protection? The shopkeeper listens to Maddie's story and presents a black rubber helmet. Maddie tries it on. It's uncomfortable and makes her look like a retard. But if it means you can play footy... Was I any good playing? Oh, you've always been among the first picks when your friends choose teams, boys and girls both. She pushes the helmet over her regrowing hair, stares at the changing room mirror and intones, "Awake, for morning and the bowl of night has flung the stone that puts the stars to flight." Richard doesn't grasp the connection. "Oh, come on, Dad. The rubber hat of Omar Khayyam." He guffaws and hugs her. "Any more puns like that, girl, and I shall disown you." She giggles and weeps with joy. The helmet will divert everyone's attention from her spots. "Awake, behold, it makes me look a fright, but still it serves to hide the zips from sight." Her father takes her back to Pevensey, kisses her, and drives away. She goes to her room and throws all the kids' stuff into a cupboard: toys, books, games, pictures. Madeleine's Alves. Of her forgotten childhood, only Carruthers remains in view, tucked under her duvet, his worn old head on her pillow. Teddy Threadbare.
I think that's brilliant. I like that, Mark.
Thank you.
I kept thinking of the rubber hat of Omar Khayyam. I kept thinking when I was a kid, very, very small, my grandmother used to recite the moving finger writes and having writ moves on. No all like piety, no wit.
Can move it back to cancel half a line.
That's it, yeah.
All thy tears wash out one word of it. Yes,
I love the pun, the rubber hat of Omar, yeah.
Yes. Yes, I mean, it's just to say she's forgotten, she's lost her memory of her childhood. She can't remember. She knows she went riding because she's seen photographs, and she knows she played football and loved it, but she can't remember whether she was any good at it, and so on. It's a very disturbed situation for her, but she's obviously a very, very intelligent girl. And, to come out with a pun like that when she's 13 is it's just an indication that she's smart.
Yeah, I really think that is. Yeah, I do love that. That is very, very clever.
Thanks, Teddy. Yeah.
What have we got a title now, Mark, for your book?
The Man in the Mirror.
Right.
I prefer the rubber hat of Omar Khayyam.
Yes, it's a good thrill.
Right. Okay. Over to Dave.
Right, my write-up is on immigrants. Now, the word immigrants has a lot of bad baggage with it, but COVID has turned things around. And I wrote two poems on two individuals I happened to meet. This was long before COVID, when I went on a cruise. One was a Pakistani man who was manning the till at the car park, and the other one, a Filipino, who made my bed on the ship. And I spoke to them at length, and for some reason, it has stayed in my heart, those two individuals who were immigrants, and I don't know whether their papers were okay, and they were struggling. And here I was enjoying the benefits of the Western society, going on a cruise. And that really stayed with me for a long time. And I wrote those two poems, which I'm going to read out to you. But this is in the context of changing times in the backdrop of COVID. Current COVID pandemic has taught us to be more cognizant of our own roles in our society, to learn to separate wheat from the chaff, recognize essential from the dispensable. At last, the contribution of our frontline workers, the last mile runners, and the doorstep deliverers is beginning to receive its rightful recognition. Needless to say that as a group, it is the immigrants that form the majority in this rank. Forced by circumstances, they learn to sweat and toil to the limits of human endurance and accomplish feats which would otherwise be impossible for others living within a security bubble. Such has always been the case since the dawn of human civilization. The great pyramids were built by Nubian slaves or immigrants, as were the great colosseums of Rome, or the massive projects like Panama Canal. Our forefathers walked out of Africa and colonized the rest of the world. All of us have been immigrants at some stage of our human evolution. The other change COVID has brought upon us is by pushing technology to leapfrog to a level that in not too distant future, virtualization, artificial intelligence, and augmented reality will become the new reality. This will no doubt lead to divide the world population into two tiers. A small minority will become the actual owners of the technology, separating from the vast sea of population turned into passive job seekers. A shrinking job market will force the traditional white-collar workers to join the ranks of the frontline workers in their own country or become immigrants elsewhere. In this changing world expedited by COVID, I hope the word immigrant loses its dark shadow constantly in its trail. I dedicate my poetic space to highlight the human aspect of immigrants who so often are demonized by politicians for their own personal gains. So the first one was about this Filipino man who made my bed on the cruise ship. Man from Manila. A man from Manila made our bed on sea. 20 years and more. He served bed tea, good sleep at night, wined, dined, and bowled. Every time I went past, he smiled to us all. Left his family at flush of youth for the high sea. Family never knew where he was going to be. Ship gave him everything, happiness and sorrow. His today were ours today, his sons tomorrow. While we went out, he dutifully made our bed. Come morning, dull or shine, he stood on deck. I hardly leave the ship. I even cash my leave. Every day I give my best to make you happy at sea. He served us for a fortnight, worked in great zest. At departure, a little gratuity, all he could expect. You are not just a worker. You are my real host. May God bless you. Tonight, I propose you a toast. So that was one poem. And the second one was about this Pakistani man who was manning the till at the car park. At Southampton, a Pakistani manned the till, urging drivers parking cars only foot their bill. Short, broad, no moustache, but a thick beard. Asked our whereabouts, wished us from his heart. Is it very costly, he asked, to be on a cruise ship? Is the ship fully air-conditioned, stern to the hip? Is there a lot of food? Whatever you can eat. You must have big money to find yourself a seat. I'm sure he thought, why he too not get a taste? Why was he born in a country with a sealed fate? Not fit for minimum pay? Papers may not be right. Agents siphon little. He made using all his might. Mullah's religion rule his life. Tyranny everywhere. No way out of his clutches. Allegiance to swear. His country slides. Unending poverty to bear. Have a nice time, he wished, with a smile and a tear. A smile and a tear.
That is absolutely lovely. It really is. And I'm rather with you. It would be very nice to live in a world where the word immigrant has become redundant. Nobody really knows what it means anymore. You're right. We're all immigrants. Descended from immigrants. There might be some people living in the Rift Valley in Kenya who are not immigrants. Everybody else is.
I think COVID has taught us, to revalue ourselves, where we will be in the next 5 years or 10 years. The relentless march of artificial intelligence and augmented reality is going to eat away all the jobs. Whether it is hospital, whether it is nursing home, whether it is dining, the robotics are coming in a big way.
They are
taking up all the space of the people who are sort of on their feet serving food at the restaurants. Those jobs are going to go.
Drivers' jobs will go.
Jobs will go.
Yes.
And the society will have to seriously think, how do we keep these people?
How do we keep people occupied?
Occupied, yeah.
Because what we will have to do is to pay people to enjoy their leisure.
That's right.
And therefore, means for entertaining people, for making people use their leisure in the ways they want, will become big challenges for us. It's an extraordinary thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
As you say, I mean, we have to reconceive the way society operates. The whole structure of the economy has to be rethought.
Does it mean population control?
It will probably happen, Tony. It's happening as we speak. Population is sort of, plateauing out in lots of countries. Yeah.
Yes.
I think I read in China it's beginning just to go down, isn't it?
Down, yeah. Mm-hmm. But before that happens, the environment will be upon us. We are seeing massive changes in the environment all over the world.
Yes.
And this will only get worse and worse. I cannot imagine. The other day I got held up in London because Houston was underwater. And this thing is going to happen 3-4 times a year, I hear.
Oh, yes. I mean, it will get worse. The point is that people are seeing these changes, and it's generally acknowledged. What people are not recognizing is the fact that the climate is, in the technical mathematical sense, a complex system. And the one characteristic of complex systems is that they can be in a stable state, and a perturbation will shift them a little from that stable state, take away the perturbation, it will go back again, more or less. But if the perturbation is too big, it won't. It will flip very suddenly into a new stable state. And there is evidence that it has happened because the best evidence from an investigation of ice core samples is that the last ice age, the glacial period, ended the big melt in a matter of a decade or two rather than over centuries. So that was a flip of the climate, and it's going to happen again, and it will be catastrophic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think all we can do is to reevaluate our own personal position, reset ourselves, as far as much as we can, control our consumption and waste, and contribute our bit to sort of controlling the temperature.
Yeah, as which, I do to a certain extent. I mean, going part vegetarian, using my car as little as possible, and so on. But then you sometimes feel, well, I'm making these little gestures. Is that really making any difference? But then, of course, it will if everybody does it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Tony. Those were
Dave.
Dave. Yes, I was thanking Tony for sharing his as well. But that was a climate one.
Where was your cruise, Dave?
Oh, this was probably 3 years ago. I've been to 3 cruises before. I'm going to another one in a month's time. It was all around Europe. 2 were in the Mediterranean. The third one was in Norwegian Sea. And next month we are going to Spain and Portugal. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, they say the cruise is the best environmental way of traveling. The way the cruises are designed,
Right.
There is so little burning of fossil fuel, and everything is recycled. I don't know, but it's a nice way to travel.
Yeah, I like going on cruises. I'm just looking at one now.
Oh yes.
Yeah, well, a mate of mine's been cruising around the red light area of Sheffield. Does that count or not?
I don't think that quite counts, Tony.
Possibly not. So that concludes our spoken word for this evening, and we hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon, and hopefully back in person in REMS in a few weeks or so. Okay, bye.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
Bye.
Lovely to see everyone.
Indeed.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.